Absolutely.
Well, Maggie, this group and a number of other parishioners from Christ Church have volunteered at the Pope Francis Center when you were still at your original location.
Mhm.
Um, so we're interested in hearing from you about the volunteer opportunities now, how that's different than the volunteer opportunities before, and just generally how things are going.
Yeah, absolutely. So in general, the work that our volunteers are doing is essentially the same as it was before in the old space over at St. Peter and Paul, but we have moved to the TCF Center, which is formerly Cobo Hall, for the time being. So basically what happened when the pandemic hit, we realized that we couldn't operate safely inside in the lovely room at St. Peter and Paul. So we started in March serving meals outside. So we set up tables right outside of our side door, and we were essentially just serving meals out the door. We had some tents set up in the parking lot across the street, so if it was raining, our guests could, have some shelter. And we actually had a mobile shower unit, which we parked in the parking lot there too, so our guests could continue to take showers. But that was pretty much all we were doing, was just meals and showers. So then as soon as it started to get colder and we realized this wasn't gonna work too well outside in the cold Michigan winter, we ended up getting some space over at the TCF Center. So we're kind of in the lower level, and we have a couple of rooms that are all connected to each other, and we are able to socially distance and operate safely over there. So we have 2 dining rooms that are pretty spacious and are all spread out. We have 2 lounges with TVs in them, so our guests can come in and sit and watch TV. We have a full laundry room with 3 washers and 3 dryers, so we're continuing with our laundry. We have a shower unit over there as well that's parked, right up against the door, so it's sheltered and easy for our guests to access. And then we also have a we call it the front office, but where we're giving out tons of clothes, socks, underwear, hats, gloves, blankets, toiletries, first aid supplies, and we're giving away just tons and tons of stuff these days. So essentially what our volunteers are doing is helping with all those things. We usually have 1 or 2 people that are on the laundry duty, so they're taking laundry from the guests and washing and drying their clothes for them. And then we always have a few volunteers that are serving meals on the line, just like before, except all of the meals are prepackaged to go. So some guests will come in and they'll take their meal and leave. Some will sit down at a table and enjoy their meal, but it's all prepackaged. And then we always have some volunteers that are helping to pass out the items that our guests need, and sorting through donations and whatever other special projects are needed. And we have, that's our typical in-person volunteer opportunity. We have PPE for all our volunteers. So when you arrive, we give all our volunteers an N95 mask, a face shield, and gloves. We also have been trying to kind of expand our at-home volunteer opportunities, just because of COVID. We know not everyone's comfortable coming in, and that is fine and makes sense. So some things that have been really helpful and successful in terms of at-home volunteering have been things like hosting your own drive. So I had a family, I think, that did their own sock and underwear drive, and they just reached out to all their friends and said, we're collecting socks and underwear for the Pope Francis Center, and then bring them down to us. That's always helpful. And you can really do a drive with any item. We need tons of stuff. So other popular ones have been blankets or coats. Winter coats are huge right now. Toiletries, we always go through those travel size toiletries really quickly. And then we also have had a couple of groups put together silverware bundles for us. So with the to-go meals that we serve, we have usually plastic silverware that's wrapped in a napkin, and that takes time for our staff. So it's really helpful to have groups that'll roll those up for us and deliver them to us rolled. We have a school group that's making Valentines for our guests. So I love being creative in what, volunteering looks like for us. Just want to make sure that people are involved and helping out. And yeah, it's been really great. We've been really, really happy with the way things have turned out in terms of COVID. One of our proudest moments was a couple weeks ago, we got the city of Detroit to come in and vaccinate 65 of our guests and our whole staff and a couple of our volunteers, which was really great. They're coming back for the second dose on Thursday this week, which we're feeling really, really blessed to have that. And I actually just heard the stat today that of all of the people in Detroit who are experiencing homelessness who have been vaccinated so far, we have done 50% of them.
Wow.
So we're really proud of that and excited to continue.
Maggie, before, when a group from Christchurch volunteered, you usually asked for, I think, 7 or 8 people to work the shift from 6:45 to 11. Have the numbers changed? Have the hours changed?
So the hours are exactly the same. We are open from 7 a.m. to 11. So we have our volunteers arrive around 6:45 and stay until 11 or a couple minutes after. In terms of numbers, it really changes for us every day. The maximum number of volunteers that we want is 12. Just because we hate when people are just standing around doing nothing. So usually like the ideal is 8 to 10 or 11 or so volunteers per day. That's the most productive for us.
Okay, and there was a food preparation volunteer opportunity beginning at 11. Do you still have that?
We do not. We've kind of done away with that, mostly because of COVID. We might, sometimes if it's really needed, we might have 1 or 2 volunteers that are signed up for the regular shift go up to the kitchen to help with prep. But we luckily we got a couple of cooks from the TCF Center. They provided some of their kitchen's cooks to help our cook. No longer Brother Dennis. We have a new cook these days, but he's, doing great and he has some extra help there. So we don't need as much help in the kitchen.
Okay. And there was on the website a while ago, a request for a volunteer who would go to Einstein Bagels and pick up bagels. Is that still?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
We're still doing that. We do Wednesdays and Fridays. We need 1 person each Wednesday and Friday to go to the Einsteins in Grosse Pointe on Mac. And, we partner with them and they give us all their extra bagels, which is amazing. They give us like 400 bagels a week and it's awesome. Our guests love them.
Wow. Okay.
How many bagels did you get eaten by the volunteer on the way downtown?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'll start quizzing them.
Inspect their car for crumbs.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you anticipate staying at the TCF Center for some long period of time?
Well, that's still a little bit up in the air. We for sure are staying through the end of March, and we're working right now on extending the lease a little bit just because April doesn't necessarily mean warm weather here in Michigan. So we're hoping to extend a couple months. We just don't know exactly yet, but definitely through March. And then once we, head back over to the church, that's still all question mark too, depending on COVID situation and how we're operating. So we don't know yet.
Yeah. When we volunteered before, we usually tried to have a Christchurch group that took up all the volunteer slots on a particular day. Is that still possible to do?
Yes, absolutely. I am happy to do that for you. We have a nice new sign up system. So we used to use Sign Up Genius, but we got a new software that is specifically for organizations like us. So I have access to that and I can easily schedule you guys for a whole day. That sounds fun.
Okay. it's not that we don't want to associate with other people, but
Right.
yeah. Do others of you have questions for Maggie?
Where exactly is the space that you're using? Because, for instance, the Iserman Drive is closed. So you,
Yes, so we are actually on the complete other end of the building. So the entrance where our guests come in is at the corner of Cass and Congress Street. And there's kind of a door into the building there, and you go down and around a corner, and we're sort of in the basement over on that end. But oddly, the kitchen is on the river side of the building. It's like a really long walk to the kitchen. Which is its own set of logistical challenges. But we actually had our bagel people delivering over there on Eiserman Drive and had to, make some space there for the vaccine distribution, which we did happily. But yes, we're over on the other side of the building.
okay.
And parking is where?
The rooftop parking deck. So some of you might be familiar with up that helix, kind of over
Sure.
near that entrance to the lodge. We are up there, and then you can access our space from up there. You just take the elevator all the way down.
Yeah.
And all that information is on our volunteer site. So I can direct you guys there. It's just volunteer.popefranciscenter.org. And even if you wanted to volunteer without your group, we always have open spaces. And once you get into our site, you can log in and see how many spaces there are open for a day, and you can sign yourself up or sign up a team, or I can do that for you. You can always reach out to me. I'm happy to help with that too.
Okay.
I assume the clients are able to get out there over to Kobo without substantial difficulty. Is that correct?
Yep, it's been working out great.
Good. Do they like it better, or do they like the church better?
That's a good question. I actually haven't asked. I think after being outside for so long, and especially into the fall, we didn't move till mid-November. So they were just so happy to have a place to be inside, I think. But that's a good question. I'm not sure.
Have the numbers of guests that you serve on a daily basis increased, decreased, remained stable?
Increased quite a bit. So I think when we were over at the church, we were serving usually around 120 people a day, and now we're up to around 200.
Oh my goodness.
And it's it goes up and down, but generally trending up. So we're pretty grateful to be able to be doing what we're doing right now.
Okay, all right. Is there on the volunteer page on the website a list of things we might collect that you could use?
Sort of, yes, there is. There are a couple different pages on there. There's tons of information, including parking if you are coming down to volunteer. There's one page that talks about donated items. So that is the list generally of things that we're looking for right now. There's also a page on there that has some pre-made flyers for sock and underwear drives. We haven't gotten around to making more flyers for different things, but they're there if you want them. And there's some instructions for how to get stuff to us and what we're looking for on there. So yes.
I just want to make a comment, which is I'm glad that you have gone that route as well, because some of us who are in the elderly category were concerned at this point about doing volunteering, even though you're giving PPE and so forth. So some folks just weren't comfortable. So the idea of,
Absolutely.
As we get into the spring, I think there may be more people volunteering we can consider, but doing some sort of a drive has some, it's pretty exciting for us.
Yeah, it's been great. We've been absolutely blown away by the generosity we've seen since COVID. I mean, it has been astounding. At Christmas time, we were overrun with generous donations of just all the stuff that we give out and that our guests need. So thank you for saying that. We appreciate it.
Satha, you're a representative of one of the neighborhood groups who are collecting things for Crossroads. Is it feasible for you guys to be collecting things in a different bin perhaps for Pope Francis?
Don't know why not. Maggie, we have collected regularly at church food and other items for Crossroads up on the boulevard. And so we went to a series of depots, one on the east side, two on the north side, one in Lafayette Park, and have been collecting stuff contributed by parishioners in bins sitting outside our front doors. So there's no reason why we couldn't do that for Pope Francis as well.
We also have done we were just talking before you came on, we've done a diaper drive for Advent, Advent diaper drive, welcome Jesus, anyway. But we were saying it'd be interesting to focus on possibly doing something in the spring that we could all rally around. So we could do some ongoing things in terms of underwear and, so, but you might think about if there's something in particular that we could. Yeah, we'll look at your list, but anyway.
And the other thing to note is that our list is kind of always changing just in terms of what stuff we're getting from other places. So, I mean, I'm happy to stay in touch with you guys. If we have something in particular that we're, in dire need of, I will let you know, because that does change quite a bit.
Yeah, people like your dire need. So, I mean, then it's like, okay,
right.
Our congregation is pretty good about jumping in there for the dire need stuff. So.
Let me toot Eileen's horn.
Yes.
She came up with the idea of this Advent diaper drive, and this past year we collected over 27,000 diapers.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
So yeah,
wow.
Well,
we could have a sock drive.
Yeah, good.
Yep, always need socks. We give those out all day, every day.
I love that. Was it 2 years ago that we did a sock drive on Maundy Thursday? Like when we were washing feet and
washing feet.
We collected like 100 pairs of socks that night.
Yeah, that's great.
That's awesome. I love that, connecting to a theme. That's great.
Yeah. Maggie, has you talked about how the number of guests has increased. Has the demographic makeup increased? I mean, are there more? It was predominantly men when we were down there. Are there more women? Are there more children? What do you see in that regard?
Yes, so we're still predominantly men in terms of percentages, but there definitely are more women and definitely more children. Unfortunately, it's tough, but it's family. There are a couple of kids that we see pretty regularly that come in and out, and they know all the staff and the staff knows them, and they're built sweet relationships. But yes, we've definitely seen an increase in the number of women and a smaller increase in the number of kids.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Other question. Oh, I'm so sorry.
No,
another question I had was, there had been talk pre-COVID, you guys were working on some housing possibilities. What could you give us a quick status? I mean, I assume that everything just sort of.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Great question. So we were planning, we still are planning on building what we call a bridge housing facility. So it's kind of the bridge between homelessness and more permanent housing. And we're still working on it, just kind of in the background. We're actually, right now, our biggest challenge is finding the right piece of property. So that's what Father Tim and the gang is focusing on, is finding that right spot for us.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Are the Cobo people relatively cooperative in terms of before and after activities by your guests?
Yes. Yeah, they're great. They have awesome cleaning and maintenance staff. They're really wonderful. We've been so happy with their team.
Yeah, I until recently I taught at UD Law School, and I'm now retired, but I know every once in a while there was some tension between the guests and the students and the staff of the law school, and it's I guess inevitable with this population, but regrettable.
Yep.
Are you paying some kind of a fee or rental of the property for?
Yep, we pay rent. We have been able to get a lot of it funded from, I think, the city of Detroit. But we do pay rent to TCF Center.
Okay.
And is it working? Sorry, is it working like it did before? So it pretty much, they have to leave by about 11:30 or so, okay.
Even
So
earlier,
again,
honestly. We start kind of clearing them out around 10:30, 10:45.
for
Barbara, you
several
looked,
years, I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, Barbara, you looked as if you wanted to jump in with a question.
I did. Maggie, well, thank you for your wonderful work. My question concerns people who might not have shelter for the evening. Where do they go?
That, just depends on the person. It's all, situation by situation basis. We do have two staff members that are kind of dedicated to assisting guests with issues like this. So some of you might know Chris Harthen. He's been around the center
Sure.
for a while. He's now working as what we call a navigator. So his job is to kind of meet with guests and help them find either shelter or housing or whatever, in terms of where they're staying. And we also just in the last couple weeks hired a social worker. So we have a social worker now that's helping with those issues as well. But yeah, it really just depends. Right now with these cold temperatures, I know there's been a little bit of talk of staying open 24 hours. It's, still in the works, and I don't know what'll end up happening just because it's pretty tricky to go from 6 hours a day to 24 hours. But yeah, it's tough. It's really
Yeah,
tough.
I would think you'd have to have some licensing and all kinds of issues of that kind if you're gonna run a overnight shelter, for example.
Right. And it's, there are different levels of emergency weather situations, and the city kind of decides what level of emergency. So it's a lot of moving parts, but.
Yeah.
Maggie, I don't know how this would work given the current COVID situation, but we spoke to Chris or Harrison or one of the staff about contacting us if there was another polar vortex, as there has been in the past, and the city needed more space to house folks. So as I say, I don't know how that would work in the COVID situation, but keep us in mind if that happens.
That's great.
Yeah.
We will definitely. That's something that we've been kind of tossing around a little bit. They haven't declared a polar vortex yet, but I think that the temperatures are getting a little close to it. So we'll definitely keep you guys in mind for that. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
And this, have you been in our space at all?
I have not. No.
It's an old gym. I mean, there are other parts, but when we have the weekly overnight guests through Cass Community Services, they're on mattresses in basically what's an old gymnasium. Okay. Where supposedly Joe Louis used to fight or train, but it's Spartan, but on a short-term basis,
right, does the job.
It should work.
Yeah.
Great.
I promised Maggie that we would only keep her for 20 minutes or so. We have time for a couple more questions.
I just wanted to say, I heard today on the radio that Detroit, the shelters for Detroit are very full, and that they have not been able to maintain social distancing, and the cold weather is super cold weather. This weather we're having is supposed to last through next week. So I don't know what I don't know what they're doing, but it sounded like they were really just having to have people come in because then they said they didn't want people going around and giving people certain things because they don't want them to stay outside at all in this weather, because it's so easy for them to cross over from life to death in a short time with this bitter weather. So that's what I heard today. So do you work with them at all, or do you send people to some of the other shelters that are working?
We do, yeah. We're part of what's called the Continuum of Care. So it's kind of like an overarching organization that's working to address homelessness in the city. And it's essentially like a coalition of all of the different people like us and other, you know, iterations of what we do. So yes, we do work with all of them, and we I mean, all of our guests are in the other shelters right now, hopefully.
Okay, yeah, good.
Yeah. Okay, well, Maggie, thank you for giving us some of your time. It's been wonderful to meet you, and we'll be in touch shortly, I suspect.
Sounds great. It was wonderful to meet you all too. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank the Blake family for all they do.
I will pass it on.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.